On the telephone line is iconic rock and roll pioneer, the legendary Bobby Rydell. Bobby, it's an honor to have you with me on KMET Radio.
Well, thank you ever so much, Brian. My pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. Amazing career, Bobby. Big fan. Bobby, let's begin. Tell us how growing up in South Philly, the area was like as a kid, and what type of music do you remember struck an interest with you?
Well, growing up in South Philadelphia was actually, really, really wonderful. I moved out of South Philly quite a few years ago, but it's like the old saying, you could take the kid out of South Philly, but you could never take the South Philly out of the kid. It was a wonderful area to grow up in, it was a very great neighborhood. Basically, most of the neighborhood was Italian, which I am. And, the guys, the girls, we'd all know one another. We'd go to George's ice cream parlor. We'd have ice cream, have a Coca-Cola, play the Wurlitzer jukebox, go down to Wildwood in the summertime. Most of the guys and girls from the neighborhood. It was absolutely wonderful, just a wonderful time, a great experience.
Now, Bobby, I read that you were very close with your dad. Your dad was a big music fan, big band era, and would take you to see some of the bands play. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. Yes, Brian. When I was 5 years old, my father loved big bands. He wanted to introduce me, to that kind of music. So at 5 years old, took me to a theater in Philadelphia called the Earl Theater. It was an afternoon performance. And it was the Benny Goodman Band. Now, I didn't know Benny Goodman, but like I said, my dad wanted to introduce me to that kind of music because he loved it. So we went to the Earl Theater, and I absolutely adored the band, but there was one guy in the band that I said to my dad, I said, I want to be that guy, Dad. I don't know his name, but I want to be that guy. And that was the drummer for Benny Goodman, and his name was Gene Krupa.
Wow. Now, you created your first band, Rocco and the Saints, correct?
Well, no, it wasn't my band. It was a man by the name of Rocco De Laurentiis.
Okay.
Excuse me. He was kind of like a piano player. He was the front of the band. Excuse me, got a cough. And Frankie Avalon was in the band playing trumpet. And I've known Frankie since I was 10 years old. Frank was 12 at the time. And the drummer got sick. And Frankie said, Bobby, can you come and fill in for Chippy Broncata? I said, yeah, sure. So I went down there and I played, rehearsed with the band prior to doing, the sets at that time, 40 on and 20 off. And there was another band there playing. They were the headline band called Billy Duke and the Dukes. And there was a bass player in the band by the name of Frankie Day. So, their set was done and we were on. Now I'm playing drums and I'm singing some songs and I'm doing some imitations, so on and so forth. After the set, this guy comes over to me, Frankie Day, and he says, I'd like to manage you. Now, I was like 15 years old at the time. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Talk to my dad. My dad was there with me. And we talked with Frankie Day, and we shook hands and never signed a contract. And he became my first manager, and he was my manager for a good, 17 years. And that all happened because the drummer got sick and Rocco and the Saints.
Man, that's amazing. Now, 1959 was the year, I believe, that you signed with Cameo Records. What do you recall about that day when you signed that contract?
I went down to the studio. I auditioned with another guy, and we did a song called Buddies. Something like buddies, the best friends in the world, but two friends can't be buddies and in love with the same little girl, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, Bernie liked me. Bernie Lowe, who was the owner of the company, signed me to a contract. And I had 3 recordings for Cameo that did nothing whatsoever. And I was really happy playing drums. And then in the summer of 1959, they wrote a song called Kissin' Time, which became my first hit, summer of 1959. And, of course, as they say, the rest is all history.
Rest is all history is correct. Now, do you remember the very first big gig that you performed in? And did you know right away that you had it in you to become a phenom?
I don't know about a phenom, but, You know, when I was just like 7 years old, my dad used to take me around to clubs in Philadelphia and would ask the club owner, would you mind if my son sang a few songs and did a few impersonations? So actually, that part of my life became like, it was like my vaudeville, and it kind of got me ready for things that were going to happen to me later on in life. My first appearance, I guess, I would venture to say it had to be the Dick Clark show in Philadelphia. And that was because Bernie Lowe took an acetate to him of Kissin' Time. And Dick, from what I understand, dropped the needle on the acetate, and he told Bernie Lowe, he said, "That's a hit." And then at 17 years old, I was on the Dick Clark American Bandstand show. So I guess that was, my very first big appearance. Network television went coast to coast back then from 3:30 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon every day, Monday through Friday.
Absolutely. We're talking to the legendary Bobby Rydell. Bobby, you mentioned Avalon. The other two boys at the time from Philly, Fabian and Avalon, they had hits in 59. Like you mentioned, you struck it gold with We Got Love, which became a top 10 hit. How was that experience like for you?
Oh, well, actually, Kissin' Time was the very first hit. I don't remember where it charted, but, we have a show. When I say we, Frankie Avalon, Fabian, and I, we started it back in 1985 called The Golden Boys. And we're still doing that show to this day. It's 2019. We're going into 2020, and we're booked through 2020, and it's absolutely wonderful because the three of us all grew up in South Philadelphia. Fabian and I were on 11th Street, and Frankie was on 9th Street, and it's just a lot of fun. Frankie has a good line. He says, "Look at the three of us. We were three guys who used to hang out on the street corner together, and now we're hanging out on stage." And it's really, really a great show, and we have a lot of fun. When you mentioned We Got Love, Frankie Avalon said to me, and like I told you earlier, I've known Frankie since I was 10, he was 12. He said, "Bobby, I love that record that you recorded." I said, "Which one, Frank?" He said, "The one that goes, 'Cause you got one lucky." I said, "Oh, We Got Love." He said, "Yeah, what a great record, man." I said, "Thank you." But, we've been buddies. We've been buddies for, God knows, forever.
Man, so 1960 Wild One sold over 1 million copies, along with a couple of more hits you created, Swingin' School and Ding-a-Ling. I mean, right there, your momentum was skyrocketing.
Oh, absolutely, and once again, that all goes back to my very first appearance on the Dick Clark show. And Dick, made a movie back then called Because They're Young. And right at the top of the motion picture, it's me singing a different version of the recording of the recording version of "Swingin' School," and it was great, to be able to have a track, a vocal track, in a motion picture. But I've been very, very lucky in my career. I've had a lot of great recordings. Songs like you just mentioned, "Swingin' School," "Sway," "The Cha Cha Cha," "Volati," "That Old Black Magic," "Forget Him," "Wildwood Days." It's just been a hell of a ride.
Oh, it's remarkable. I mean, that's what I mean, a phenom, legendary career. Now, you mentioned Volati. It's one of my favorite songs. It's part of, I believe, this American pop culture history. What do you remember most about creating Volati?
Well, we were going into a studio in New York City. I believe it was RCA Recording Studio to record an album. And Bernie Lowe didn't like the way the whole album turned out, but we needed a song. We needed a song because I was coming off of Swingin' School. So Bernie Lowe went back in and listened to what we had recorded in New York City at RCA Recording Studio. So he picked Volati, and then we added the girls who were, very familiar with all of my recordings with the whoa-whoas and the yeah-yeahs and stuff like that. Remastered Volati, put it out, and that became my second million seller. And on that particular date, not only did we record Volati, but we recorded Sway, and that old black magic, which also became hits for me.
Man, amazing. Bobby, let me ask you, out of all the music you created, what would you say is the most special song to perform and why?
Well, actually, I guess the song that I'm most associated with is, it's my opening music, and it's my bow music. So that would be Volare. It's my signature song. I think most people associate me with that particular recording. So, like I said, that is my signature song, and it's a great record, and I get the audience after I sing, like the first half of the song, I get the audience to sing, and it's just a ball. It's great.
Yeah. Now, Bobby, this show that I'm doing, it's a sports card and entertainment show. Now, I have to ask you this. I don't know if you recall this. In 1960, the Fleer Gum Trading Card Company, which had a corporate office in Philadelphia, produced trading cards of rock and roll icons of the time. And you're in that set. It's called the 1960 Fleer Gum Trading Cards Spins and Needles. Do
really?
you recall
I didn't know
taking
that,
a
Brian.
photograph with Fleer?
No, I don't. I don't remember that at all. But wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, your picture is on the 1960 Fleer trading card. And
wow.
There's a picture of Bobby Rydell. So I found that very interesting. Now, you're such a big part of our pop culture history, Bobby. I mean, you were on the cover of all those magazines back in the 60s. I mean, was it pressure for you at that time? Take me back. I mean, you were a teen idol. I even read that Frank Sinatra ordained you as his favorite pop singer of the early 60s. That's incredible.
Yeah, he really did, Brian. And matter of fact, about 2 years ago, I was doing a show in Philadelphia with a disc jockey. His name was Sid Mark, who plays nothing but Sinatra. And it was myself and Frank Sinatra Jr., and we were doing, we're talking about his father, so on and so forth, just talking about music in general. And I turned to Frank Jr. I said, Frank, I'd like to thank you for that little thing you said about me. I said, and he said, what are you talking about, Bob? I said, well, you said that I was one of your favorite singers. And Frank Jr. said, I never said that. I said, I heard that. He says, no, I didn't say it. My father did.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man, what amazing career. Check this out, Bobby, and you probably noticed 34 top 100 hits, placing you as one of the top 5 artists of your era. I mean, that is some achievement with so many great talent back then. Is that impressive or what?
Of course it's impressive. My God, I'm probably in the company, of a lot of great people. So, to be mentioned, what is it, the top 100?
34 top 100 hits, I read, placing you as one of the top 5 artists of your era of all time.
Wow. That's
amazing.
Wow. Oh, I mean, what an honor. What an honor that is. That's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. And all the talent back then, Sinatra, Elvis. Did you ever meet Elvis?
I never met Elvis, no. I enjoyed him, thoroughly, but I never had the opportunity to meet him. But, there are other people in the business who I adored, and, of course, one being Mr. Sinatra, and the other one who became a very dear friend, and in my show I do a tribute to him, and that's Bobby Darin, who I thought was one of the greatest talents from our era that anybody has. If anybody had the opportunity to see Bobby Darin live, what a thrill, what a performer.
Yeah, no question. Now, we're talking to the legendary Bobby Rydell. Bobby, you also wrote a book, Teen Idol on the Rocks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, after, when I was, early in my 20s, and after a show, we'd sit around and have a couple of drinks and just tell stories. And everybody used to say, Bobby, you have such wonderful stories. Why don't you write a book? And I'm saying, who the hell wants to read a book about a 21-year-old, 22-year-old guy? I said, I haven't even lived my life yet. So years later, my wife, Linda, my first wife passed away, Camille, in 2003 via breast cancer, remarried.
Sorry.
And yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, we had a wonderful marriage. It was 35 years. We had a great marriage, 2 great kids. And I miss her dearly, but, we had a wonderful life together. But anyway, my new wife said, you should really think about writing a book. And now, I was in my 70s. So I said, and I got together with a guy by the name of Alan Slutsky, who did a thing called with Motown, and he's a marvelous musician. And we sat for about 1.5 years, close to 2 years, and I just poured my heart out. And the book, I'm very, very proud of. It's a very sincere book. It's very honest, and I talk about things that a lot of people, really didn't know about me. And the book came off very, very well. And as you said, it's called Bobby Rydell, Teen Idol on the Rocks, A Tale of Second Chances. And it's very true. I've had quite a few things in my life that happened to me as far as surgeries, this, that, the other thing. And, I really do have a second chance in life.
Now, Bobby, if for those fans listening to the program, if they wanted to pick up a copy of that book, where can they go to purchase that book?
You can go to my website, BobbyRydell.com, and you go and look at merchandise, and the book will be there.
Perfect. Now, we're going to play a couple of minutes of some of your classics. Is that okay? We're going to play that now?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Sean, can you play some Bobby Rydell?
Let's fly way up to the clouds, away from the maddening crowds. We could sing in the glow of a star that I know of, where lovers enjoy peace of mind. Let us leave the confusion, all disillusion behind. You look cute, just like birds of a feather, rainbow together will fly. Oh, Lordy. Whoa, that was nice. God's darling. Oh, no wonder my happy heart sings. Your love has given it wings. Yeah. Whoa. Would you like to hear another run? Okay. Oh, wild one, well, I'll make you sit there. Wild one, gonna clip your wings and them things. You got the lips that I'm mad about. I got the lips that'll knock you out. Wild one, be one about me. Oh yeah. Whoa. Wild one, be one about me. One more one time. Yeah. Come on up, wild one, be wild about me. Be wild about me. Thank you ever so much. Got it right now.
Wow, that's beautiful, Bobby. Great stuff.
Well, I'd never heard that before. That's live.
Oh, live, and it sounds live and kicking, and a lot of energy. It's just beautiful material. I got to ask you, Bobby.
Where the heck did you get that, Brian?
Well, the engineer Sean did great work there, and he was able to come up with those couple of songs.
Ah,
I can ask him where he retrieved it from, but I know
that's
that
pretty
was a
cool.
lot of energy and just amazing, amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. That's the first time I've heard it.
Oh, it's just beautiful stuff. What do you think of today's music, Bobby?
I don't listen to it. When I go in my car, I put on 50s on 5, 60s on 6, WIP Sports Talk Radio, and Seriously Sinatra. But
So you're a sports
there's one
fan?
guy
You're a
there's
sports
one
fan?
guy there's one guy out there that I really enjoy, and he recorded a song that I recorded that introduced him to the public a few years back, and hopefully one of these days I'll have a chance to do something with him, because I really adore the guy. I think he's a marvelous singer. That's Michael Bublé.
Yes. He's excellent. Now, I have two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up, Bobby. So many shows that you performed. I read that you performed at the Red Skeleton Show, the George Burns Show, Jack Benny, Danny Thomas. What would you say was the most rewarding program? I know you mentioned Dick Clark, the most rewarding program that you appeared in.
Oh my God, Brian, there's so many. I did 12 shows with Mr. Skelton, and he was absolutely wonderful. And I remember that he invited me out to his house in Palm Springs after we recorded one of the shows. And his wife said to me, she said, "Bobby, I can count on one hand the number of people that Red has invited out to his home here in Palm Springs." And we became very, very close and very, very dear friends. He was absolutely a wonderful man. My very first appearance in Las Vegas at the Sahara Hotel was with George Burns. And my God, the people that I've worked with, like you mentioned, Red Skelton, Jack Benny, George Burns, Danny Thomas, Milton Berle, Perry Como, you can do nothing but learn from these people, And, when I worked with Mr. Burns in Vegas, after I would do, a certain amount, maybe 20 minutes, and then we would come out and we'd do a soft shoe together to Some of These Days, the song Some of These Days. And every night when I was through, I used to come down in the wings and just watch. I would watch Mr. Burns, how he delivered a line, his timing. And like I said, I had the great opportunity to work with some of the giants in the business. And, I learned an awful lot from these people. Like I said earlier, I've had a wonderful career, a wonderful life, and it's absolutely been one hell of a ride.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. Now, your website is BobbyRydell.com, and
That's
you're still
correct.
touring.
Yeah.
I believe your next show is Mississippi on October 11th.
Yeah, we're at the Biloxi. We're in Biloxi at the Hard Rock Casino.
Yeah, and then you're over in Pennsylvania on October 27th.
Yeah, that's the thing. The man I mentioned earlier, Sid Mark. It's an anniversary for him. He's been on the air for God knows how many years, and it's myself and comedian Tom Dreesen who worked with Mr. Sinatra for a lot of years. So basically, we're going to be doing a lot of Old Blue Eyes charts, so that's going to be a great experience with a 16-piece orchestra.
Wow, and then you're over in my neck of the woods in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we've worked there so many times, the three of us, Frankie Avalon, Fabian, and myself, and it's always been a ball. It's just a wonderful casino to work.
Beautiful. Now, listen. I got to ask you. Now, I read that your grandmother's last name was Sapienza. Is that right?
That is correct.
Sapienza. Now I'm from Brooklyn, where I grew up with a lot of Italians, and I went to school with Sapienzas. So, Sapienzas. Are you a big pizza fan? What's the best pizza you like? Brooklyn's got the best pizza, Bobby.
We have some pretty good pizza in Philadelphia too, but I just love tomato pie. I
You like
don't
the
like
tomato pie.
pepperoni. I don't like anything on top of the pizza. Just give me tomato pie. That's how my grandmother used to make it, the sapienza. And, I just love tomato pie. I don't like everything with a liege and you put pepperoni. And just give me a tomato pie. That's all I want.
Well, listen, it is an honor to speak to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you ever so much, Brian.
Yeah, and best of luck, best of health, and we'll keep in touch.
Same here. Thank you ever so much once again, Brian.
God bless, Bobby.
God bless you, too. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the legendary Bobby Rydell. Amazing performer. One of my favorite vintage singers of all time. Volare, one of my favorite songs. And for me, it was an honor to speak to the great Bobby Rydell. Again, we'll mention it, BobbyRydell.com. That's his website. Has a list of his tours. Like we mentioned, October 11th, he'll be at Biloxi, Mississippi, Biloxi Hard Rock Casino. October 27th, the Parks Casino, Sid Mark's Sound of Sinatra with comedian Tom Dreesen, and that's in Ben Salem, Pennsylvania, October 27th. March 5th, he'll be at Plant City, Florida, Strawberry Festival. April 11th, 2020, Bobby Rydell. You can catch him at the Benedum Center for Performing Arts. April 19th, 2020, that's at Mohegan Sun, as we mentioned. So Bobby Rydell is still touring, performing his greatest hits. One of the top rock and roll singers of the 1960s, and really a legendary figure. Until next week, happy collecting to all.